Hello and welcome to another episode of Fix Your Crown, part of NERDS Inc. NERDS Inc. is an organization that promotes social change, exists with the purpose of training young leaders and equipping them with the tools that allow them to inspire and change different communities. I'm Matthew Feiler, and I am your podcast host for today. Today's episode will focus on tutoring, and I am so excited to have my guest Galit Maayani with me. Galit is a tutor. She tutors math. She is the founder of her own tutoring company, Galit Maayani Math Tutoring, or GMMT. She lives, and the services of her tutoring is based out of Rockland County, New York. And not only does she work with all students from different age groups, but she also works with individuals who need some refreshment on their math. If they're looking to get a certification, she's worked with teachers who are going to teaching math. She's helped even somebody who is going to the nursing sector, needs to take a test and needs some math information. So really amazing that she saw this need in her community and she was able to want to help kids, and that's what she does with her tutoring services. Well, Galit, I am so happy to have you on the podcast and joining me today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
So first of all, before we even start, this is a very strange time with COVID. How are you and your family handling? How are you doing? It's some strange times, right?
Strange times. I can't complain. I'm busy working, but definitely strange time. But we're handling. I have my college kid here and my high school kid here, so at least we're together.
Exactly. It's got to look at the bright side of it, for sure. So as I mentioned earlier, you started your own company, your tutoring company, GMMT. So has education and your background in education, have you always wanted to sort of be a teacher? Did you always want to be a tutor? Is this something that you kind of always knew that this is what you wanted to do and help kids? Or did you sort of find this later on your path?
So I always loved kids, but we all go to college and we start something, and whether we like it or not, we start and we see if it's us. I actually started with computer science, and the only thing I liked about it was the programming. And so I took a break for a semester and had a thought and said, I like kids, I like math, and I put it together and I started learning how to teach, and that's all I wanted to do. It's funny because as a kid I wanted to become a gym teacher, which is not happening. But yes, I did always want to be a teacher ever since I was young, and it came to fruition, which I'm happy.
I guess a math teacher is exercise for the brain, right? So how did you start your own tutoring services? So again, you're not a teacher at a school. You work out of your house. You have your own office, which I see you're in right now. How did you decide to start your own tutoring services from your own house?
So it all started in college. I saw the need that kids just needed to be tutored, and this is not new. And I started then. I had so many students. My professors started referring me to kids they knew that needed help, because a lot of parents call the colleges to see if there's a college student that can teach math. And sure enough, I was referred by my own professors, and that's how I started. I did go and teach in school, and when I became a young mom, I decided that's all I wanted to be with my kid. And it dawned on me that why can't I do both? And I tutored ever since.
Wow. That's so awesome that you sort of saw this need and then you sort of were able to sort of act upon it. So what classes do you teach? So what subjects do you teach within the math field? Are you willing to take a challenge also? And maybe if there's a subject or subtopic within math you're not as comfortable with, still help somebody? What does that look like?
Yes, so my main certification is 7 through 12. However, that doesn't limit me to anything. If someone comes to me with a fifth grader or a fourth grader, of course I can help. I enjoy seeing the joy on their faces that are just, that's it? And I go, yeah, that's it. But yeah, the challenge sometimes is all those core curriculum. I can't tell you how many times parents approached me and said, do you teach the core curriculum? And it's something new to us. We don't know what this is all about. And yes, so I had to teach myself about it. And yes, I take the challenge each time. I go as high as 12th grade. However, SAT, ACT classes. I do run small classes. Right now it's all online, so I limit it to only 5 students, and I cater directly to a certain date of a test. So if it was just recently a test on September 26th or October 3rd, so I catered just for that test. So we were ready, those students were ready to take the test at that time, and the class ended for that. And now I have extended services past the test. So I have either for the first test, or extended. I live in New York, so there's regions. Yes, it was canceled due to COVID, but we're hoping it's going back. So I run small classes to support these kids in taking these regions, whether it's Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2. I did run a class that is limited to 10 kids, and right now, because of Corona, we will see what happens at the end of this year, but I will definitely do that. And the challenging is sometimes I have kids that continue on to community college or regular college, and they still need the pre-calculus and calculus. And pre-calculus is no problem. Calculus, I just, I tell them I'm not a professional, as I love it, but I definitely am willing to help, and I definitely help kids with calculus A, B, and BC in school. So I do offer that if they need.
Great. And that's such a wide scope. And you were telling me earlier, which I was like in amazement of, that you also work with adults, or people who sort of, not just students who are learning this because this is what their course is, this grade level, but you're working with people going back to school or sort of looking for a certification, right? And they need math involved as well.
Yes. So I currently work with someone that is an adult. He's in the field of biology and needs to go back to school, but math is something they all need to take as a base. And so he reached out, and that's what we're doing. I'm tutoring him for the math section of the beginning of his career. He needs to get some certification. Same as young teachers, or even adults that want to go back to teaching or fall back on. Elementary school teachers have to take a certification test that has math, science, English. And so I take over the math part, and I have helped several get their certification and pass their tests. I did have an adult that needed to pass her, I'm actually not sure what the test was, but it was to become a nurse. And so she needed a lot of math with a lot of measurements, and I was able to help her, and sure enough, she passed. So I was very happy.
I know you mentioned this earlier, but what does your situation now look like with COVID? Has it been easier? Has it been harder? Is there good? Is there bad? And has that allowed you to expand your clientele as well?
It's funny because even before Corona, I was tutoring some students that are out of state via Zoom, but they still wanted my services because we just clicked and it worked. And so we actually worked on Zoom even prior to COVID. COVID brought the rest of my students into just remote. And yes, there's challenges. The challenge is I have some students that are special need or just have learning disabilities, and that sometimes hinders things. However, it works. One-on-one definitely does work better than a group. So although a lot of parents want face-to-face, I right now do not offer face-to-face. So I tell them, try me and see what happens. And let's be honest with each other. And they do notice that it really does work. I do have clientele in Boston. I have students that are in Long Island. I just finished teaching a student for the SAT in Long Island. So yes, it makes this world very small. And I even have clientele in Israel, believe it or not, which is nice.
Well, international tutor for an international organization that you're on the podcast for. So my next question for you is, and this is, I'm just curious, like your opinion on this, what are the benefits of being a tutor versus being a teacher in a classroom?
Benefits. I don't know if it's benefits. I just think it's fun, working with a student one-on-one and seeing their just smile, to see that they were struggling a second ago and now they got it, and it just dawned on them to that, all it is was some practice and maybe someone to tell them how to do it on their own. So the benefit is just pretty much holding their hand and seeing their progress. Where in a classroom, you not necessarily have that chance. You teach to 20 to 27, and if you're lucky, kids, and remotely is very hard because you don't know what they do at home or what the problem is at home or how the internet is and whatnot. But one-on-one, you get a chance to talk to them, to see how they are, to actually interact and ask them how they are doing. And sometimes it's not all about math. It's just the emotional aspect of things and the connection between a teacher and a student that helps.
Yeah, and I could attest to that. So growing up, I had an IEP, and sometimes being in a big classroom was very overwhelming, or I sort of needed a little bit more time to process the information. And sometimes I was pulled out to like the resource room, or the assistant teacher would come over and help me. And a lot of times I felt like I learned more that way because I was getting the individual attention to sort of my specific needs and sort of help work me through what I was confused about. Yeah. So it's just, obviously that's not the norm where everybody is homeschooled and everybody has just, somebody teaching them for their specific needs. That'd be nice because I think a lot of people would be a lot more successful in the workforce if they sort of had an education that tailored to their individual traits and needs and who they are as a person. But also sometimes, it's not the reality of our world and our educational system, but sometimes when you do have that extra tutoring, that extra person, like you said, just to show them like, this is how it's done, or just relax, or just like, be proud of how far you got and just do that for all the other problems, or let's, take that same mindset and continue with that. It's really helpful, right?
100%. Everything you said is correct. And I see it on kids. They need that. They need that personal touch. They need that personal one-on-one time with a teacher that just takes time out of their day to kind of ask them how they are, and like I said, has nothing to do with the subject matter, but more of let's talk, let's see what's going on, and then go from there, and then slow the process down to their needs, and depending on how fast or small they recognize the issue or understand the material.
Right. And I think needs could be like, oh, I'm a little confused, I need this information, or oh, this class is way too slow, I need like more advanced information. You work with both.
Yes, exactly. The challenge needs to be also the other way. The pendulum swings both ways. You have kids that are sitting in class bored because, especially now, the teachers can't really shift gears from low to high student. And so those kids are sometimes lost. So finding them a challenge and teaching them to higher levels or even higher thinking of, you're learning this, but do you know why you're learning this? Let me tell you. And let me tell you what you can do with that information. And that's the challenge you need to bring. And it's funny you ask, because I was just asked to do that with a student that is exactly what's happening to them. And the mom noticed. So she wants me to challenge them.
It's so good to, work with both types of, students or multiple categories. So, yeah. And what do you want to say maybe to somebody who's listening to this, who's saying, now that I'm listening to sort of what you're doing, whether it be math or a different subject, like I could use a tutor, I could use somebody to help me along, or, maybe I'll be a little bit more successful in school or my career if I have somebody to help me along the way or mentor. What do you want to say to them if they're sort of listening to this podcast and saying, something like tutoring might benefit me in the long run?
Yes. So I always tell my students and the parents that a tutor is there to guide them, to teach them how to study on their own, how to learn on their own. So whether it's one subject where in math, it's step by step, let's take it that way, it actually helps in life, and then to teach an adult or a kid how to teach themselves or how to study for a subject using their notes that they took in class, like in 40 or 30 minutes, rushed, is something beneficial that they can definitely take into the workforce. And so whether you're struggling with, one problem or it's more of a challenge, don't wait. And I tell this to parents all the time, don't wait until they fail a test. They're complaining that, it's becoming challenging. Give them that stepping stool so that they can hop over that wall and then continue on their own. So whether you hire a tutor for one time or for several times or for the whole year, it doesn't matter. Just give them that tool. If you can afford it, definitely give them that tool.
Yeah, and sometimes just to hear it explained in a different way or different, again, the one-on-one interaction, I think really helps people and might push them to be more successful than they thought.
Definitely, you touched on a very important topic where not every teacher teaches the same way, and hearing it in two different ways might benefit them. I'm a big fan of telling a student, if you see a different way of doing things, please tell me, teach me, let me hear it. Because I'm a teacher, but I learn every day, and sometimes kids catch on very differently. So even if they see it another way, we can definitely benefit from the many ways of learning.
So I sometimes found as a student, there'd be somebody in the class like, oh, they always knew the answer. They always knew to do it. And I'd go to them and say like, hey, could you help me? Like, do you think peer-to-peer tutoring could also be beneficial?
Oh, for sure. I think a student that can teach another student will advance even further. Teaching is not easy. There's a lot of very, very, very talented people out there that not necessarily can become good teachers because they can't bring it to the level of the student. So peer-to-peer will definitely benefit because those students know where they were a year ago or just last month, and they can turn around and say, hey, I had that same problem. Let me show you how I dealt with it. And so definitely peer-to-peer definitely works. And I definitely encourage it. We have it in our own school here in our district, and it works.
Yeah, I think that is important to remember, and everything we were talking about. If you are struggling or having some, academic need, there's always, it's good to reach out and get the help.
There's always someone willing to help. There's always a way, a guidance counselor, reach out always, and don't wait until it's too late.
I think that's so true. You said that before, but it is, because if you wait too late, I remember there was a class that I took in high school and I struggled, like test after test, I didn't do well. And then finally I went to the teacher and I was like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, at least, it was towards the beginning of the year, so it was fine. But I just remember thinking, like, if I continue this way, I don't want to fail the class. I don't want to flunk out. I mean, this is going on, for your GPA. This is going on for college. This is going on for your career. And a lot of people think like, oh, this one test or this one class isn't going to do me so harm, But yeah, everything does add up together. And in the long run, like, things do sort of are cumulative, and you want to make sure that, okay, maybe you're not going to pass every test, and maybe you're not going to do as well as you thought, and that's fine. And like, you grow and there's fine, but it's okay. But sort of, if you see it's a pattern, with being one class, multiple classes, I mean, you just want to try to be your best in success and grow yourself.
Yeah, because you don't want to be hopefully behind always. You want to be, catch it in time so that you actually go ahead. A lot of time what I do with my students, which is different from a lot of tutors, is I tell the kids, okay, what'd you do today? I backtrack to teach them the whole week's work again, and now it's going to click. Now, if I have time, depending on the student, I move on a little bit. So that way, again, they hear it from me, they hear it from the teacher, they sit in class and they're like, wait, I did this, I understand this, now I can raise my hand and be that kid that knows what I'm talking about. And that's the benefit of kind of shifting and not waiting too long to get help.
And then it feels so good when you know the answer, when you know the information, when you could be on top of things. It's such a good feeling, and it's probably good and rewarding to you too.
Yes, totally. And there's no better reward than a kid telling me, wow, I did so well on this test, I can't believe it, I love it, thank you. And that thank you is just the reward I need, and it's amazing.
Well, it's such good wisdom and thoughts to sort of end with. Before we officially end, how could people connect with you to sort of find out more information about GMMT, and or maybe even just if they want to reach out to you and ask you questions, or sort of maybe another tutor for a different subject, what's the best way to reach out and continue this conversation, Galit?
So they can go on my website, which is www.maayani.com, MAAYANI.com, and they can fill out a form to become a student or just get general information. My phone number is there, my email is there, And I usually also connect through Facebook, which is Galit Maayani Math Tutor. And yes, you can reach me, just like my page, and I'll call you back as soon as I can. If I'm tutoring, then just wait until the end of the day, but I will definitely reach out very quickly.
Great, and we can include that information in the on the podcast in the show notes, so totally fine. And I know Galit personally, and I could say that like not only is she like one of the sweetest people I know, but also she's so reliable, she's so willing to help. And anybody who is listening to this and thinks, oh, Galit could help me, or I know somebody who Galit could help, please reach out to them, please connect, please network. You know, you could be helped and reap all the benefits that we spoke about in this podcast. So Galit, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really a pleasure to have you on this podcast. I think all the information you shared about your background, sort of the importance of tutoring, or maybe getting some help, whether it be because you're behind or maybe because you want to get ahead and want to challenge yourself, there's always ways to help you. And really, education, academics will help people and help you thrive and help you with your career and sort of in all steps of life in so many ways. So Galit, thank you so much. I loved learning a little bit more about your company and the importance of tutoring today. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you to our audience for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this podcast and listening to it, and hope you gained some great information. Also, feel free to look up on NERDS Rule Inc. International, or you could find information about the organization, the amazing work that the organization is doing. And you could also go to the podcast tab and listen to past episodes that we have done, whether it be me or some of the other amazing hosts part of this podcast. Galit, thank you so much again, and hope you have a great day.
Thank you very much for having me. You too.
Hello, and